Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, a former NYPD sergeant sentenced to 18 months in prison. Details on how he helped a Chinese police officer stalk a New Jersey resident. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang makes a high-profile visit to Beijing as China-US tensions escalate. What political challenges does his billion-dollar business face when it comes to the second biggest market? A new Chinese official set to lead trade negotiations with the U.S. What sets him apart from his predecessors? And the U.S. and China locked in a tariff showdown. Countries have lined up to negotiate with the U.S., but Beijing has yet to come to the table. Who has the upper hand? Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we dive into today's news, make sure to use the link down below to subscribe to our newsletter. Each week we round up the highlights and controversies happening around China and the world, and share an exclusive behind-the-scenes snapshot with our readers. Keep an eye out. The newsletter will land in your inbox Friday morning. A former NYPD sergeant sentenced to 18 months behind bars Wednesday. His crime, taking part in a campaign to pressure a New Jersey resident to return to China. He's also ordered to pay a fine of $11,000. The man's name is Michael McMahon. U.S. officials said from 2016 to 2019, McMahon and his co-conspirators were involved in threatening and harassing a Chinese expatriate. The effort sought to force the person to return to China and face corruption charges there. Several Chinese officials directed the operation. McMahon was hired as a private investigator for a client. He says he was unaware he was working for the Chinese Communist regime. Authorities say McMahon obtained sensitive U.S. government records about the expatriate named Xu Jing as part of that job. He then reported Xu's information to his co-conspirators and a Chinese police officer. McMahon also conducted surveillance outside the New Jersey home of Xu's relative. In addition, he discovered Xu's home address in New Jersey by following Xu's father. McMahon fed that information to a Chinese operative. Months later, McMahon's co-conspirators drove to Xu's home in New Jersey, pounded on the front door, tried to enter the house, and peered through the windows in the back of the home. Eventually, they left a threatening note on the front door, saying Xu's wife and children would be okay as long as he returns to China to endure 10 years in prison. On top of this, McMahon also suggested to one of his co-conspirators that they harass Xu by parking outside his home. He also zeroed in on Xu's family, researching his daughter's university, residence, and college major. What was he paid for in exchange for his role in the scheme? $19,000. Two of McMahon's co-conspirators have already been sentenced to 1 to 2 years in prison. The scheme is part of a Beijing-run campaign called Operation Fox Hunt, an effort to bring people wanted by the Chinese regime back to China. An FBI special agent in charge said Beijing has invested years and millions of dollars into trying to silence dissent beyond its borders, adding these efforts threaten U.S. national security. His message: the Chinese Communist Party needs to understand the U.S. will not tolerate it. Turning now to the tariff showdown, President Trump says every nation, including China, wants to meet with him to talk tariffs. This comes as China faces up to 245% U.S. tariffs on certain goods. And even though Trump repeatedly has thrown Beijing offers for negotiations, Beijing hasn't officially reached out for a deal. Posting on Truth Social Thursday, Trump wrote every nation, including China, wants to meet. Trump is meeting with Italy's Prime Minister Thursday to talk tariffs. That's after he had a call with Mexico's president, plus a meeting with Japan's highest-level trade representatives. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang is back in China, just days after Nvidia pledged a massive $500 billion investment in the United States. Huang is now working to safeguard the company's profits in China, a market too big to ignore. But in doing so, Huang may be walking into a political minefield, with his visit potentially being used as a weapon in Beijing's ongoing tensions with Washington. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang is in China just 3 months after his last visit. As U.S.-China trade tensions continue to escalate, Huang met China's Vice Premier He Lifeng Thursday in Beijing. State-run broadcaster CCTV reports that Huang emphasized China's importance to Nvidia's business, expressing hopes for continued cooperation, even as Washington further tightens the restrictions on technology exports to China. China Daily, another state outlet, quickly shifted toward a broader propaganda campaign. It shared a photo of Huang promoting the hashtag #OpportunityChina, a tag often used to highlight U.S.-China trade opportunities. Another topic drawing public attention is Huang's choice of attire. Known for his signature black leather jacket, Huang opted for a formal suit this time during the high-profile meeting. The timing of Huang's visit is critical. Just days ago, the White House announced additional tariffs that would bring the total rate for Chinese goods to 145%. Beijing quickly retaliated with its own 125% tariff. According to the Financial Times, Huang also met with Liang Wenfeng, founder of AI startup DeepSeek. The two reportedly discussed designing next-generation chips, even as Washington tightens restrictions on tech exports to China. Earlier this week, the U.S. Commerce Department imposed a new licensing requirement on Nvidia's H20 chip, a GPU designed specifically for the Chinese market under previous export restrictions. Nvidia said that the new regulation would cost it $5.5 billion in earnings. China has made its ambition clear to overtake the United States in artificial intelligence. President Trump started fighting back against that during his first term in the White House. The United States isn't the only superpower hosting talks with other countries. China has also been busy doing the same as it grapples to get the upper hand in its standoff with Washington. Chinese leader Xi Jinping arrived in Cambodia on Thursday to further strengthen bilateral trade relations.
The visit, following stops in Vietnam and Malaysia, comes amid escalating tensions between the U.S. and China, with China facing up to 245% tariff rates on exports to the U.S. Trade will be a key topic in negotiations between China and Cambodia. Cambodia's finance ministry spokesperson said they're expecting cooperation to include infrastructure development aid. Something to note, the U.S. imposed a 49% tariff on all Cambodian exports. President Trump has paused retaliatory tariffs for 90 days on most countries, giving them time to negotiate fair trade and reduce restrictions. China is Cambodia's largest trading partner as of 2024, exceeding $15 billion in bilateral trade. But Cambodia imparted far more from China, leading to a trade imbalance in China's favor. Besides trade, China helped fund a naval base expansion along Cambodia's southern coast. According to NPR, there are concerns that the area could be occupied by the Chinese Navy. Cambodia has repeatedly denied granting China access to the base.
While Xi Jinping tours Southeast Asia, the Chinese regime announced several abrupt changes among its top officials. And one such appointment is being interpreted as a strategic shift to counter the trade war. On Wednesday, Li Chenggang was appointed as China's international trade representative and vice minister of commerce. Compared to his predecessor, Li stands out with extensive experience in global trade, having served in key roles including ambassador to the World Trade Organization, deputy representative to the United Nations, and assistant minister of commerce. His role in China's Commerce Ministry overlapped with Trump's first term in office. Li got his master's degree in economics of law from the University of Hamburg, Germany. Zooming out, he condemned the U.S. for, quote, arbitrarily imposing tariffs on trade partners at a UN meeting in February. Li's appointment comes amid escalating U.S.-China trade tensions. Analysts note that his experience in the UN may help him pull in other countries and oppose the U.S. Coming up, the U.S. and China locked in a tariff showdown. Countries have lined up to negotiate with the U.S., but Beijing has yet to come to the table. Who has the upper hand?
But I think that economic reality is countries need the United States more than we need them. So this is going to be, I think, good for us and not good for China.
A prime opportunity for Chinese suppliers. A barrage of social media posts reveal them pushing what they say are high-end brands for low-end prices. A look at the controversies. And are Americans feeling confident about the future of the economy? And what's the latest on the tit-for-tat tariff escalation with China? More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. What is the current state of play when it comes to Trump's tariff strategy? Is it working in America's favor? American Thought Leaders host Yanni Kelek sat down with China analyst Gordon Chang for his take.
Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China. So good to have you back on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you, Jan.
So, Gordon, 245% is the new tariff number we're hearing about. What's the meaning of this?
That tariff rate is for electric vehicles. But, electric vehicles are not going to get into the U.S. regardless of tariff rate because the Biden administration actually essentially prohibited them on American roads because of their capability of spying on America. So whatever the tariff rate is, 245%, 2,450%, they're just not getting in.
And so give me a picture as of today. We're following up on our short conversation last week. What's the state of play with these tariffs, and what's your best sense of what they're really all about?
Well, President Trump is negotiating with those 130 or so countries that have contacted the White House since his April 2nd Liberation Day announcement. And essentially what Trump is going to do is redirect trade flows around the world. Everybody needs the U.S. consumer market. It comprises almost 30% of global consumer spending. And so he's going to negotiate with Japan and with other countries. And this is going to really set a template. Once he gets those first deals in place, he probably will extend them to others. China, which is refusing to talk to the United States now, is probably going to be left out in the cold. And eventually it will have to come to the table. But regardless of whether China talks to us or not, Trump is resetting everything around the world right now with these tariffs.
Well, that's actually very interesting because I've seen analyses on both ends of this. Some people are telling me, who I find quite credible, that they will come to the table. It'll maybe take a month or something like that. And there's other people who believe, for pretty credible reasons, that they're just not going to come to the table. Any thoughts here?
Well, countries are not required to trade with us. But if they don't trade with us, they're not getting access to our consumer market. So I think countries will understand that they have to do that. But, we'll see. There's a 90-day pause, and we'll see what happens at the end of that. And we'll understand one way or the other. But I think that economic reality is countries need the United States more than we need them. So this is going to be, I think, good for us and not good for China.
Well, and so specifically on China, that's actually what I was, I probably didn't say the word China. Specifically, I've heard that they may, of course, there's plenty of countries. I mean, I think there's 80 plus right now that I'm aware of that have decided to come to the table. But China itself, as you mentioned, has not been very forthcoming. And the question is, will they ever?
I suppose at some point they will. Xi Jinping is perfectly capable of taking China off the cliff. And so, he says he won't be bullied. He says he's not going to talk to us until we come begging. So I don't know. But this is not going to be a good story for China. Because remember, our economy is much bigger than theirs. Even with their inflated gross domestic product reports, their economy is less than 2/3 the size of ours. Last year, China ran an enormous merchandise trade surplus against us, $295.4 billion, which was 5.8% bigger than the merchandise trade surplus in 2023. I mean, they've got everything to lose. Now, they can retaliate as they've done with the rare earth export ban. But, they tried that against Japan in 2010. It didn't work. China collapsed in a couple months. They can tell Boeing we're not accepting deliveries of planes. But if President Trump says if he prohibits Boeing from selling planes and replacement parts, there are going to be a lot of planes in China not flying. So, we have the power. The only way China wins this trade war is if it gets Trump to preemptively surrender. Now, Trump knows he holds the high cards, but the question is, and a lot of people say, well, we're a democracy, we've got to give up. I don't think so, because Trump actually believes in these tariffs. He knows how important it is. But that's China's only route out of this.
The tariff war has a new battleground, the slightly sketchy sales world of TikTok. It's become a prime opportunity for Chinese suppliers to push what they say are high-end brands for low-end prices. But experts aren't buying it and point to discrepancies with luxury suppliers and goods. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
Why don't you just contact us and buy from us? You won't believe the prices we give you.
Won't believe the price because experts say the bags in this TikTok video are most likely fake. Manufacturers of high-end brands usually sign a non-disclosure agreement and don't speak about which brands they supply. Chinese sellers on TikTok are taking full advantage of the current tariff uncertainty. Bag manufacturers like Wang Sen say they're offering luxury bags at surprisingly low prices.
Do you recognize this style, this bag? Of course you do. For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton, you name it.
The video has since been taken down by the app, but others are racing forward to the front lines of the tariff war. DHgate, an online store whose sellers have been known to offer Chinese knockoffs of luxury goods, has shot to the #2 spot in the U.S. Apple App Store. Another app, Taobao, one of China's oldest e-commerce sites, is at #7. In one video, an influencer who goes by the name Luna Sourcing China says her company has 2 factories in Yiwu, a city famous for its wholesale market. She claims that activewear brand Lululemon sources its $98 leggings directly from them.
I guess most of you know the price of Lululemon or other big brands. They sell you a legging pants for $100. And guess what? Here in these 2 factories, you can get them for around $5 to $6. Crazy.
Lululemon, however, has quickly denied those claims of cheaply priced versions of their products. In a statement Monday, Lululemon said it does not work with the manufacturers identified in the online videos, and we urge consumers to be aware of potentially counterfeit products and misinformation. The 2 factories mentioned in the TikTok video aren't included in Lululemon's April 2025 supplier list. The company does work with a number of factories in China, but it also has suppliers in countries like Vietnam, Peru, and Cambodia. Experts warn that any factory offering direct orders to American consumers is probably not legit. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Are Americans feeling confident about the future of the economy? And what about the tit-for-tat tariff escalation with China? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
I think he's trying to level the playing field, and I have confidence that, it will work itself out.
I voted for him to take care of the country, and I'm hoping that he's doing the right thing. I hope he's got some kind of a plan, because I think it'll turn out okay.
Yeah, I think tariffs are in a part a good thing, especially if other nations has a tariff or tax against American goods going over there. Then I think we should
equal them out.
Equal them out.
China's really screwing us. They're undercutting us with labor, taking manufactured goods, sending them through other countries, bringing them back here, taking our jobs. It's not about me, it's about the country, right?
The United States has helped fund a lot of countries through tariffs. And for anyone to think that it's not fair for us to respond to that at this juncture, I would disagree.
President Trump is temporarily pausing tariffs on all other countries except for China. And what do you think is behind the president's strategy here? What does it say about his priority?
I think by him pausing the tariffs, it's prompted the other countries to kind of think about what he's capable of doing.
They've been taking from us too long, and he's putting his foot down, and I'm proud of him.
In Michigan, we happen to have an uncle who has like a huge amount of pigs. I don't know what you call that.
Farming
and like huge. And he's in business with a slaughterhouse with a couple other men. They were losing, when they first did the tariffs against China a few years back, he was losing $1 million a month. And he said it was still the right thing because we need to equal things out.
I take an example of what's happening now. China just took away the mineral for us and other countries. Right now they're currently building up their military bigger than us. Why? Why do you think they want to become a world power? They essentially are becoming a world power. They're going to be taking over Taiwan eventually unless we do something. If we don't stop it, they take over Taiwan. It's a defensive position in that part of the world.
We have a significant trade deficit with China. They have made a lot of money from the United States. And it's time we step up and say, okay, let's be fair.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.